Today, we will step into a journey of learning English while discovering what it means to become the strongest version of yourself. When we learn a new language, we don't just study words. We shape discipline, focus, and confidence. Today's story is inspired by David Goggins, a man who transformed his life through relentless effort, honesty with himself, and refusing to quit. His journey reminds us that no matter where you start, you always have the power to improve. So open your mind, stay present, and get ready to grow. Let's begin. David was born on February 17th, 1975, in Buffalo, New York, into a life that would test his spirit from the very beginning. His family was small but burdened. His parents, Trunnies and Jackie Goggins, struggled with cruel conflicts and a harsh reality. His early environment was far from idyllic. Scarcity, tension, and fear shaped the contours of his youth. By the time he was 6, David was already working at his father's roller skating rink, helping out late into the night. That rink, owned by his father, was not just a business, but a source of trauma. At home, David faced abuse and instability. His father's temper and strength weighed heavily on him and his brother. The violence and tension seeped into every corner of his childhood, breeding stress and fear where a child ought to feel safe. When David was still quite young, his mother made a brave decision. She left his father for her own mental health and the safety of her children. She moved with David and his brother to live with her parents in Brazil, Indiana, away from the rink, away from the darkness of their former home. But escape did not guarantee peace. Even in Indiana, David faced racism at school. He carried the burden of being different, both in skin and in struggle, and he internalized a loneliness few could understand. In school, David discovered another challenge. Learning was not easy. He was diagnosed with a learning disability, which made reading and speaking feel like walls he could not break through. He also developed a stutter, a mark of his constant nervousness, and the lasting scars of his toxic upbringing. Social situations often triggered a fight-or-flight response. In the classroom, he felt trapped in his own mind. Despite the deep fears and uncertainty, a quiet flame of determination began to glow within him. Even as a boy, David understood that he could not remain hopeless. He felt that his life must become more than pain and survival, but he did not yet know how to shape that dream. He felt powerless, yes, but he was not willing to accept weakness as his identity. As he grew older, that inner fire became more defined. He watched people who served their country, people who seemed strong, disciplined, in control. He did not yet know that he would join their ranks, but he sensed that a path existed, one that would take him far from his childhood shadow and towards something greater. The early years of his life, though marked by hardship, laid deep foundations. The abuse, the fear, the quiet suffering, all of it formed a kind of raw training. Without realizing it, young David was forging resilience, an unspoken commitment to rise, to improve, to transform. And as he moved into adolescence, that commitment will become the bedrock of his journey. Adolescence arrived with a mixture of uncertainty and quiet ambition. David carried the weight of his past into every classroom, every hallway. Every moment he tried to understand his place in the world. The move to Indiana had given him safety, but safety did not erase the anxiety carved into his mind. He struggled to concentrate, often drifting into memories he wished he could forget. Each school day became a test of endurance rather than learning, and each failure reminded him of how far he fell from the life he hoped for. Still, something inside him refused to settle for weakness. He began observing people who seemed strong, calm, and confident. Their posture, their composure, their ability to move through life without flinching fascinated him. He wanted to feel that way. He wanted the strength he saw in others to become a part of him. But he lacked the tools, the knowledge, and the habits to begin building that version of himself. The gap between who he was and who he wished to become felt impossibly wide. By the time he entered high school, the challenges had grown heavier. His difficulty with reading and speaking made academic progress painfully slow. He often felt exhausted before the day had even begun. The stutter that had followed him for years still interfered with every attempt to communicate. He avoided attention, kept himself, and tried to disappear into the background. His confidence remained fragile, easily cracked by stress or criticism. But beneath the surface, his desire for a better life grew steadily stronger. During moments of solitude, he imagined a different future. He pictured himself disciplined, capable, and free from the confusion that had shaped his early years. These thoughts became a quiet source of motivation. They did not change his circumstances immediately, but they gave him a direction, a distant point of focus he could hold on to when everything else felt uncertain. This inner vision became the compass he would later rely on during the most demanding periods of his life. As he approached adulthood, David realized that his environment would not save him. If he wanted change, he would have to build that change himself, piece by piece, choice by choice. The idea of becoming stronger began to influence his daily life. He attempted small improvements, waking earlier, studying harder, pushing himself a little further than before. These changes were inconsistent and often difficult, but they marked the beginning of habit building, a skill that would later transform his identity completely. When he looked at the world beyond high school, he saw opportunity mixed with uncertainty. He had no clear path and no guarantee of success, but he understood that remaining passive would trap him in the same struggles forever. This awareness sparked a new phase of determination. He realized the value of effort, even when results were not immediate. He began learning that discomfort was not an enemy, but a necessary part of growth. It was a lesson that would become one of the defining principles of his future. With this mindset forming, David moved toward the next stage of his life. He did not yet possess the strength he imagined, but he carried a growing belief that he could build it. The hardships of his childhood and adolescence had shaped him deeply, but they had also prepared him for transformation. Each challenge, each failure, each moment of doubt had contributed to a deeper understanding of resilience. As he stepped into adulthood, he was ready to confront the world with a mindset eager for change and committed to improvement. Adulthood began without clear direction. David finished high school feeling unprepared for the world ahead of him. His academic struggles had left him unsure of his abilities, and his confidence remained fragile. He drifted through small jobs, searching for stability, but finding only routine and dissatisfaction. He wanted more, yet he felt trapped between his difficult past and an uncertain future. Each morning felt like a repeat of the last, and each night ended with the same quiet frustration. He sensed that his life was slipping into a pattern he did not want to accept. One of his early jobs took place in a pest control company. The work was demanding and unpleasant, often involving long hours in hot, cramped spaces. The tasks were simple, but the environment wore him down. He faced exhaustion, fear, and humiliation almost daily. The job exposed his weaknesses and reminded him of everything he wished to escape. He knew he did not want to spend his life in such conditions, yet he lacked a clear alternative. That sense of being stuck began to press heavily on him, urging him to search for a way out. During this period, he looked increasingly toward the military. The idea of discipline and structure appealed to him. The thought of becoming stronger and more capable inspired a hope he had not felt in years. But he also knew that his current physical condition stood far below the required level. He was overweight, unhealthy, and lacking in endurance. His habits reflected years of stress and inactivity, rather than preparation for a life of service. Still, the military represented a distant but powerful possibility. It offered a chance to break away from the life he feared he would be trapped in forever. A moment came when he realized that nothing would change unless he made a decision. He understood that strength did not appear on its own, and that confidence could not grow without effort. This realization marked a turning point. For the first time, He acknowledged that transformation had to begin internally. His environment, his job, and his circumstances could not shape him unless he allowed them to. He needed to reclaim control over his life by changing his habits and his way of thinking. This mindset became the seed of a greater transformation. He began studying the requirements for military service. The physical standards demanded discipline, endurance, and consistency. He realized he was far from meeting them, yet he saw that the path forward was clear. He would have to work harder than he ever had before. This understanding awakened a drive that had been dormant inside him. He knew the journey would be painful, but he felt ready to embrace the discomfort. Improvement became his new focus, and each day offered an opportunity to progress towards something meaningful. This phase of his life taught him one of his most valuable lessons. Change begins with honesty. He confronted his weaknesses directly rather than hiding from them. He took responsibility for his physical condition, his habits, and his mindset. By acknowledging the reality of his situation, he freed himself from excuses and opened the door to growth. This honesty, though difficult, allowed him to build discipline from the ground up. It became the foundation upon which he would later construct extraordinary resilience. As he prepared for the next chapter, David carried a new sense of purpose. His life had been shaped by hardship, but he no longer saw hardship as a limitation. Instead, he began to view it as something that could be used, a source of energy that could fuel progress. The early struggles of his adulthood became the spark that drove him toward a path of physical and mental transformation. With determination growing stronger each day, he stepped toward the demanding future that awaited him. The decision to pursue a military career marked the beginning of a profound transformation. David understood that the life he wanted demanded sacrifice, discipline, and a level of effort he had never experienced. His first goal was to join the Air Force. The idea felt ambitious, considering his physical condition and lack of confidence, but ambition was exactly what he needed. It pushed him to take action instead of remaining stuck in the frustration that had defined his early adulthood. He began training slowly, facing exhaustion with every attempt, yet refusing to give up. When he finally entered the Air Force, he faced an entirely new set of challenges. The environment was strict and demanding. He was surrounded by people who appeared stronger, faster, and more prepared than he felt. Each day forced him to confront his weaknesses directly. The training tested his endurance, his mental stability, and his ability to learn quickly. He struggled with tasks that seemed simple to others, and there were moments when discouragement pressed heavily on him. Yet, these challenges also taught him valuable lessons about commitment and consistency. During this period, he aimed to join the Pararescue Unit, one of the most rigorous programs in the Air Force. However, he faced an unexpected obstacle, a medical condition known as sickle cell trait. This discovery forced him to pause his ambitions and reconsider his direction. The setback hit hard, not only because it blocked his progress, but because it reminded him of the fragility he had been trying to overcome. For a while, doubt returned, and he questioned whether he was truly capable of building the life he wanted. After leaving the Air Force, David found himself drifting again. The structure and purpose he had gained began to fade. Without a clear path, he slipped into unhealthy habits and gained weight. The discipline he had worked so hard to build slowly eroded, replaced by frustration and a sense of failure. He felt as though he had taken a step backward, losing the progress he had achieved. This period became one of the lowest points in his life, a return to unhealthy patterns and a loss of direction that left him feeling powerless once again. The turning point came one night, while he was working a physically draining job spraying for pests. Covered in chemicals and sweat, exhausted and unhappy, he looked at his reflection in a mirror. The man staring back at him did not resemble the person he wanted to be. His physical condition had deteriorated, and his confidence had collapsed. In that moment, He realized he was living far below his potential. The pain of this realization became a catalyst for change. He understood that he had a choice: remain in that state or rebuild himself completely. Motivated by this moment of truth, he set his sights on joining the Navy SEALs, one of the toughest military units in the world. The idea seemed impossible. He was far above the required weight limit, lacking the endurance and strength needed for the training. But impossibility no longer intimidated him. Instead, it energized him. He developed a strict training plan, waking before dawn, running miles each day, and pushing himself far beyond the limits he once believed were fixed. His transformation became an intense daily battle against his past habits and his own doubts. This phase of his life marked the emergence of a new mindset. He learned the value of deliberate suffering, understanding that growth came from facing discomfort rather than avoiding it. He embraced discipline not as a temporary fix, but as a foundation of a new identity. Each day of training brought him closer to the person he wanted to become. His journey toward the Navy SEALs was not only physical. It was a mental revolution built on determination, honesty, and relentless effort. The path to becoming a Navy SEAL demanded a complete reconstruction of David's life. He approached his transformation with a level of intensity that exceeded anything he had attempted before. His days were filled with long runs, exhausting workouts, and strict routines designed to push his mind and body beyond familiar limits. He tracked his progress carefully, confronting his weaknesses with honesty. Every step, every push-up, every painful breath became part of the battle against the person he no longer wished to be. The scales slowly shifted, his strength increased, and his confidence began to return. When he finally qualified to attempt BUD/S, the SEAL training program known for breaking even the strongest candidates, he entered with determination built from years of hardship. BUD/S was brutal. It tested endurance, mental stability, and resilience through constant physical stress, cold water, sleep deprivation, and relentless pressure. Many candidates quit within days, overwhelmed by the intensity. For David, the difficulty became a proving ground. The hardships of his past had taught him how to endure discomfort, and he used those memories as fuel. Each challenge became an opportunity to strengthen the mind he had spent years rebuilding. Despite his determination, he faced significant obstacles. Injuries pushed his body to the edge, forcing him to start the program over multiple times. Most people would have walked away, convinced that the struggle was too great, but he refused to surrender. Each setback became a lesson in persistence. He learned that progress was not always linear, and that failure could be used as a tool rather than a barrier. These cycles of pain and recovery strengthened his mental endurance, teaching him to stay focused even when results seemed distant or uncertain. As he moved through the phases of training, he developed a growing understanding of the mind's power. He discovered that mental strength could carry him through moments when the body wanted to shut down. He relied on visualization, recalling past challenges he had survived, and drew strength from the knowledge that he had overcome greater difficulties before. This approach helped him endure cold ocean nights, long runs with heavy gear, and hours of unrelenting pressure. His identity began to shift from someone trying to become strong to someone who understood the depth of his own resilience. The moment he completed Hell Week, a notorious portion of training requiring near-constant activity, with only a few hours of sleep, marked a defining point in his journey. He realized that perseverance was no longer just an idea. It had become a part of him. The suffering had shaped him in ways he had never imagined. His mind had grown sharper, his endurance deeper, and his confidence stronger. He understood now that discipline was not a temporary commitment, but a lifelong practice, one that required daily dedication. When he finally graduated from BUD/S and earned his place among the Navy SEALs, he felt a sense of achievement that reflected far more than physical accomplishment. The journey represented a transformation of identity, shaped by the principles he had built through hardship, resilience, discipline, honesty, and relentless effort. He had not only changed his body, but rewired his thinking. The boy who once struggled to read, the teenager weighed down by fear, and the young man who felt lost in life had evolved into someone capable of enduring extraordinary challenges. Joining the SEALs opened a new chapter for him, one filled with responsibility and purpose. The lessons he learned during training continued to guide him, shaping the way he approached every obstacle. The transformation he had undergone proved that anyone could rebuild themselves with enough commitment and consistency. His life became a living example of what resilience and discipline could achieve, and the habits he formed during this period would influence everything he pursued in the years ahead. Life in the SEALs strengthened David in ways that extended far beyond physical training. The missions, the preparation, and the constant readiness demanded a level of discipline that shaped his identity every single day. He learned to stay calm under pressure, to act with precision even when exhausted, and to trust the habits he had built through years of struggle. The structure of military life became a framework that kept him focused. He understood the value of routine, consistency, and responsibility. These qualities grew into core elements of his character. But military life also carried challenges that tested him deeply. The intensity of the job required long hours, mental alertness, and emotional control. David learned that every mission required teamwork, but also personal accountability. Mistakes could cost lives. This reality sharpened his awareness and pushed him to maintain a standard higher than anything he had demanded of himself before. Each day reinforced the truth that strength was not a single achievement, but a continuous commitment. He approached each task with seriousness, knowing that excellence was not optional. However, the physical strain on his body accumulated over the years. Injuries became a familiar part of his experience. The stress fractures, the pain, and the pressure began to build in ways that even his strong mindset could not ignore. The environment demanded everything from him, and he gave everything he had in return. Yet slowly, he realized that he would eventually face limits his body could no longer surpass. This acknowledgement did not weaken him. Instead, it prepared him for the next chapter of his life, one defined not by military missions, but by personal growth and purpose. As his military career progressed, David discovered a passion for pushing the boundaries of human endurance. Long-distance running captured his attention. It offered a new kind of challenge, one that required mental strength even more than physical skill. He entered races that tested his ability to withstand pain, fatigue, and doubt. Through each event, he learned more about the power of focus and the resilience developed through discomfort. Running became a tool for understanding himself, a way to explore the limits of his mind and discover how far he had come from the frightened boy he once was. These experiences sparked a new mission for him, to use his life as an example for others. He recognized that many people remain trapped by their fears, insecurities, or past hardships. He understood those struggles deeply, having lived through them himself. His story, he realized, could offer hope. It could show that transformation was possible, even for someone who began life with fear, disadvantage, and uncertainty. This purpose became a new source of motivation. He wanted to inspire, to teach, and to demonstrate the strength that could be built through discipline and consistent effort. Over time, he developed principles that guided his approach to life. He focused on doing the hard things, confronting weaknesses, and building habits that strengthen the mind. These ideas formed the foundation of his philosophy. He believed that every person had the ability to improve, but improvement required honesty and effort. He encouraged pushing past comfort, because comfort often disguised limitation. His message emphasized responsibility, taking control of one's life instead of waiting for change to arrive on its own. As he transitioned out of active service, David stepped into a new identity, not only a soldier or an athlete, but a symbol of resilience. His past, once a source of pain, became a tool for helping others grow. The lessons he learned in childhood, in the Air Force, in BUD/S, and the seals blended into a powerful message about the potential of the human spirit. And as he moved into the next stage of his journey, he carried this purpose with the same intensity he had once carried into the battlefield. After leaving active duty, David focused on pushing the boundaries of human endurance in civilian life. He pursued ultramarathons, long-distance cycling, and extreme endurance events that tested both body and mind. Each race demanded months of preparation, extreme discipline, and the ability to withstand pain that most people could not imagine. He ran through deserts, mountains, and scorching heat, often continuing even when exhaustion threatened to stop him. These challenges were not simply physical. They were exercises in mental resilience, teaching him how far determination could carry a person. Through these experiences, David discovered a profound truth. The human mind could endure far more than the body seemed capable of. Pain, fatigue, and fear became tools rather than obstacles. Every grueling mile, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt offered an opportunity to confront weakness and grow stronger. He used his past struggles, childhood trauma, learning difficulties, and the failures of early adulthood as fuel for persistence. What once seemed like disadvantages now became sources of motivation, shaping him into someone capable of extraordinary achievement. David also realized that habits were the most powerful way to create lasting transformation. He developed routines that strengthened body and mind, waking early, training intensely, practicing visualization, and focusing on incremental improvement. These structured habits became a way to ensure that progress was consistent, even when motivation waned. He understood that discipline was more reliable than inspiration. Habits could carry a person forward when enthusiasm disappeared. This principle became central to his philosophy and the message he shared with others. Beyond personal achievement, David felt a responsibility to inspire and teach. He spoke publicly about resilience, mindset, and the power of confronting discomfort. He encouraged people to face challenges they would normally avoid, explaining that true growth was found on the other side of difficulty. His story, rising from a struggling child to a Navy SEAL and endurance athlete, demonstrated that transformation was possible for anyone willing to commit to hard work. He became a living example of strength forged through adversity. His philosophy extended beyond physical endurance. He emphasized mental toughness, emotional resilience, and the importance of honesty with oneself. He believed that growth required facing truth without excuses, confronting personal weaknesses, and taking full responsibility for one's life. These principles guided not only his training, but his everyday choices, shaping the way he approached work, relationships, and personal goals. Each decision reinforced the mindset he had spent decades building. As he pursued extreme challenges, David also discovered the value of reflection. Pushing to limits forced him to examine priorities, clarify purpose, and confront inner fears. He learned that endurance was not just about running longer or carrying heavier loads. It was about understanding the mind, accepting discomfort, and using struggle as a teacher. These lessons became central to his mission of inspiring others to overcome their own limitations, demonstrating that the human spirit could triumph over even the harshest conditions. Through relentless effort, David transformed hardship into strength, discipline into identity, and suffering into opportunity. Every chapter of his life, from a turbulent childhood to grueling military training and extreme endurance challenges, wove together into a story of relentless perseverance. The principles he developed during this journey became a blueprint not only for his own success, but for anyone seeking to overcome obstacles, build good habits, and achieve personal mastery. In the later stages of his journey, David expanded his mission beyond personal achievement. He began writing, speaking, and mentoring, sharing the lessons forged through decades of struggle and discipline. His story reached people who felt trapped by fear, doubt, or circumstance, showing that transformation was possible regardless of past failures. Through books, interviews, and public events, He conveyed the importance of embracing discomfort, building resilience, and taking full responsibility for one's life. His message was simple but powerful. Growth requires struggle, and struggle requires action. David's life became a testament to the idea that discipline shapes character. Every early morning run, every exhausting workout, every painful setback reinforced the truth that effort builds strength. He emphasized that small, consistent habits were more important than fleeting motivation. Improvement was not a single event. It was a daily commitment. Through this philosophy, he inspired thousands to develop routines that strengthened mind and body, transforming ordinary lives into examples of extraordinary perseverance. Beyond physical feats, David encouraged people to develop mental toughness. He taught that resilience was cultivated through confronting fear and pushing past perceived limits. Challenges were not obstacles to avoid, but opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. By facing discomfort deliberately, a person could expand their capacity for endurance, focus, and determination. His life embodied these lessons. A boy who once struggled with learning, fear, and insecurity had become a model of courage and self-discipline. The principles he lived by were rooted in honesty, accountability, and relentless effort. He believed that excuses limited potential, while responsibility unlocked it. By facing weaknesses, acknowledging failures, and acting decisively, a person could reshape their identity. David's journey demonstrated that transformation was never easy, but always possible when discipline, perseverance, and self-awareness were applied consistently. Each hardship became a lesson, each failure a step toward mastery. David also emphasized the power of purpose. Achievements alone were not enough. They needed direction. The pursuit of endurance challenges, military service, and public influence was not for recognition, but for growth and meaning. He showed that aligning effort with purpose created resilience that could withstand life's toughest trials. Purpose became the compass guiding every action, shaping not only what he achieved, but who he became. By sharing his experiences, David extended the lessons of his life to a wider audience. He inspired people to rethink their limits, embrace challenges, and commit to consistent improvement. His story proved that no matter how difficult the beginnings or how impossible the circumstances, the human spirit could adapt, endure, and triumph. The boy from Buffalo, burdened by fear, learning difficulty and hardship, had become a symbol of courage, determination, and disciplined excellence. Ultimately, David Goggins' life illustrates that transformation is a continuous journey. Each stage, from childhood trauma to military rigor, extreme athletic challenges, and public influence, demonstrates the power of resilience, good habits, and purposeful action. He teaches that strength is not given, but earned through deliberate effort, honesty, and the willingness to confront pain. His story continues to inspire, reminding the world that greatness is achievable when one refuses to surrender, embraces struggle, and commits fully to becoming the best version of oneself. Remember, becoming a better version of yourself starts with small, consistent actions. Keep studying English, keep challenging your mind, and don't stop when things get difficult. That's when growth happens. Stay disciplined, stay motivated, and keep moving forward.